Hello, I'm Dave and this is Logan, out once again for a walk in the countryside. Thanks for joining us. Now today we're at the pretty village of Stoke Abbott in Dorset. It's about 2 miles west of Beminster and 6 miles north of Bridport. We're going to be walking a roughly 4.5 mile circular route. We'll explore the village and then head north to the site of a Roman fort, then west along part of the Wessex Ridgeway for some quite stunning views, and then we'll be turning back just before we get to Netherbury. Now I'm filming in the middle of August. It is a glorious sunny day, blue sky, hardly any clouds. It's going to be quite a warm day, so I've got plenty of water for myself and Logan, but should be perfect conditions for a walk. Do come along with us. Well, we'll start off the walk with a little wander through the village, and what better place to start than the church, which is just behind me here. And it's St Mary's Church. Now there was probably a Saxon church here on the site in days gone by, but the present building dates from the 12th century. Well, basically parts of the chancel does, but it was altered and lengthened in the 13th century, which is the probable date of the nave and chancel arch. The porch was added in the 14th century and the chancel arch rebuilt. A north chapel was added in the 15th century along with the west tower. Now it was struck by lightning in 1826 and not really significantly restored until 1876, when the porch and north aisle, which included part of the former north chapel, was rebuilt, and there was a further restoration in 1913. Okay, let's have a little look inside. It is dark as usual and I can't find the lights. So there's the font, and next to it the organ, and then on the left hand side there's a very impressive row of staves. I'll put a photograph up on screen of a little bit of information about it. You can freeze the screen if you want to read that. And then there's the bell tower with the sallies hanging up, and then on the opposite side there's the pulpit on the right and the chancel in front of me with a quite magnificent stained glass window, looking quite brilliant in the sunshine this morning. Well, just to the side of the church over the wall there, that's the old rectory, again looking quite stunning in the sunshine this morning. Okay, well let's continue with our little exploration of the village. Now, author Ralph Whiteman describes Stoke Abbott as a beautiful place of deep lanes, orchards and old houses with a church of quite charm. And Sir Frederick Treves in 1906 considered it as a prettier village as any in Dorset. Now, just to the north of the church is Bury Well, but we're not going to be able to see it because it's on private land. But I believe it's a holy well and shows on an 1896 map. Well, just as we make our way through the village, I should point out that it's famous for being connected with the last public hanging in Dorset. In 1858, a cottage in the village caught fire, and when it was extinguished, the body of 23-year-old Sarah Guppy was found with her throat cut, while a relative, James Seal, was found guilty and hanged on the 10th of August that year in Dorchester. And this is the village hall. Used to be the old school, built in 1858. Well, this must be the back of what was once an old dairy, I think. Splendid wooden shutters for the windows. I love these types of old building. Oh, what does that say? This dairy uses the Simplex hygienic milker. I wonder how old that sign is. Well, this house here, Court Orchard Farm, obviously thatched, and looks as though it's being rethatched with all the materials up there at the top of the scaffolding. And this is the old reading room for the village. Looks as though it's been very nicely restored as well. And this building here on the the dark side of the street at the moment with the sun position, but this is a Stoke farm, and I believe it dates back to the 17th century, or parts of it anyway. I love the little window up there. And this lovely building here, the old chapel that looks as though it's now a residential house. Wow, look at this. There's a spring and a water spout here, and you can see a stone carved lion's head with gushing water. Apparently it's got medieval origins, but it was restored to mark the Queen's coronation in 1953. And look, there's a little sort of cap or bell attached to a bit of chain so you can drink the water. Isn't that brilliant? And just a couple of yards or so along, there's another spring, and the water looks so crystal clear. You know, when you look at some of these cottages, it could take you back a couple of centuries or so. This is the old post office, and look at those keys hanging outside. A bit dark here because the sun's on the wrong side for the camera, but a lovely cottage nonetheless, and I love the clematis growing up the wall there. Well, there are some quite beautiful houses and cottages in the village. Look at this one here with the wisteria surrounding the front door. And this lovely building here on the corner, I think it's called Lower Farm. Not 100% sure, but if it is, it dates from 1748. And this lovely thatched pub here is the New Inn that dates back to the 17th century, I believe. And the building opposite the New Inn, which is called the Anchor House, in fact was a pub called the Anchor. I think it just shows as PH on an old map, but it was closed as a pub in the 1950s. What a quite idyllic little village. You almost feel as though time has stood still here. Right, we're going to head out into the countryside now, initially heading sort of northwest along a footpath out of the village by the side of Anchor House. Well, this path that we're following out of the village, I reckon it must be pretty ancient. As you can see, it's almost like a sunken track and very shaded with ferns either side. It's got its own little micro environment. It's quite mystical in an odd sort of way. I'm just making my way along a footpath through some woods, lovely and shaded, but from time to time you get the odd gap either side and some amazing views. I mean, this is looking, I think, to the north, and just the shape of the landscape round here is quite breathtaking. We're heading uphill, a little pit stop to get a breather. So we're heading up Waddon Hill. Now, at the very top, there's remains of a Roman fort. I'm not sure how much of it we're going to be able to see, but as I'm approaching it from the southeastern side, I can just about see at the top on the ridge there what looks like some earthworks. So I'll point that out to you now, just in case that's all we actually get to see of where the fort was. Fingers crossed we might see a bit more. Oh wow, I tell you, some of these views are quite extraordinary today. So this is this hill that we've been making our way up. So that's looking back towards the sort of south east, and somewhere down there is Stoke Abbott. But you just have to sort of keep stopping every so often and standing for a couple of minutes just to take it all in. Well, just a little heads up in case any folk are going to be doing this walk after seeing the video. Just making my way out of the field, and there's electric wire along the side of the field. Nothing wrong with that, but the gate that I've got to go through is actually leaning against the electric wire. So if you touch the gate, you'll get a shock, as I've just found out. Okay, just another little update on the route. The footpath from that field comes down a bank, as you can see here, and it joins a little road just to take us to the top of Waddon Hill, but it looks as though it's quite a quiet road. Well, this is Stoke Knapp Farm, which is about as far west as we're going to go, and we're going to take a footpath that'll take us eastwards. But before we do, I just want to show you something on the left here. If I can, yep, there it is. That is the sort of back end, as it were, I think, of Lewesdon Hill, which is the highest point in Dorset. I think it's 279 metres above sea level. Pilsdon Pen, which is just on the other side of it, that was thought to have been the highest point at 277 metres until they remeasured Lewesdon Hill. We've actually done a walk, well, at both places, Pilsdon and Lewesdon, so if you haven't seen those, do check them out. Oh, I tell you, it is quite glorious now. So we're heading eastwards. I can see Lewesdon Hill in front of me, and to my left is Waddon Hill. It looks as though the area where the Roman fort was is on private land, so we're not going to be able to explore there, but let me tell you a little bit about it anyway. There are some earthworks there, and it is an old Roman fort. It covers about 7 acres, and there's a low bank about 9 metres wide with a ditch, and you've got these steep natural slopes to the south and west and linear ramparts facing north and east. The fort measured about 122 metres long and 82 metres wide, but sadly a fair bit of it's been ruined by quarrying over the years. But the fort was built round about 50 AD by the 2nd Legion Augusta when they were having their battles with the local Durotriges tribe. I think they built it here after they'd abandoned their fort at Waddon Hill. Of course, we've done a walk there. If you haven't seen that video, do check that one out. But they reckon that the fort here was only occupied for about 10 years or so. If you want to know some more information about it, do check out Graham Webster's excellent book that he wrote about the fort in the 1960s. Well, now that we're circumnavigating Waddon Hill on the northern side of where the fort was, although we can't get close to it, you can easily make out the earthworks from this side, and it is quite impressive, that's for sure. I meant to say that we're now on a section of the Wessex Ridgeway, which is that 136-mile long-distance path that goes from Marlborough in Wiltshire all the way to Lyme Regis, right at the edge of Dorset. It was opened in 1994. Well, this is a quite beautiful part of the walk. Just been having a chat with the landowners here, lovely people. They just wanted to clarify with me to confirm that indeed the land at the top where the fort is very much private land and there isn't any public access. I think I did mention that earlier on anyway. Oh wow, the views today. I'm not even going to bother to try and put these pictures into words. Just let the pictures do the talking. And all I can hear is a little bit of wind and the odd bird So peaceful. You know, the contours look as though they've been made by an artist, don't they? Sculptured out of the hillside. Quite exquisite little pond or lake at the bottom there with reeds. Well, we're making good progress on the walk. Made it to the top of Gerard's Hill, where there is a trig point, and as regular viewers will know, that has to be bagged in the customary manner. But also from up here, well, there's some terrific 360-degree views. So let me show you, firstly by having a look over to the west. So down below there is Stoke Abbott, and then just panning across, there's Lewesdon Hill in the far distance, and then just in front here, that's the sort of end of Waddon Hill. And then we've made our way along a path along the sort of northern side of it. And then this is looking over to the sort of the north and the east. I guess that must be Beminster down in the valley over there. Now I should point out that my walking companion Logan is feeling very pleased with himself at the moment, because at the weekend just gone by he was at the Bournemouth Championship Dog Show, where he came second out of 8 in the postgraduate Whippet class, which means he's qualified for Crufts 2024. He'll be 8 years old then, so that'll probably be his last Crufts, but he's qualified every year, apart from the year that they didn't have it due to COVID, of course. Well, I've just come down a very steep hill, and at the bottom of the valley, just crossing this quite delightful little stream. I think it's called Stoke Water, it shows on an old map, and it feeds into the River Brit, which in turn goes south to Bridport and into the sea at West Bay. Now, this is a very important signpost. Hopefully you can see it, because we're in some pretty dark woods. So I'll come up this path after crossing that footbridge, and the finger post here. We want to bear right towards Stoke Road, because if you carry on, you head on to Beminster, which is where we don't want to go. Well folks, I've got a very difficult decision to make. Just come out of Puckett's Wood on a place called Knoll Farm. Now, to continue on with the walk, I head south along the Jubilee Trail and then through some glorious woodland back to Stoke Abbott. Problem, it's 1:25. The pub at Stoke Abbott closes at 2:30. If I just take the road straight back, it's only, what, 15-minute walk back to the pub? So I've got a decision to make. What would you do? Well folks, it wasn't a difficult decision. We've made it back to the new inn at Stoke Abbott before closing time for a pint of Dorset Gold. Oh, lovely. And of course, as is traditional, some crisps. Well folks, we've come to the end of the walk. We thought we'd do the end scene here at the top of Gerard's Hill with some quite stunning views over the Dorset landscape. We hope you enjoyed the walk. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up and a like, and do leave a comment, and do check out our Facebook page, Dave's Countryside Walks. So until we meet again, thanks for watching, and cheerio.